Hello, and welcome to Debugging Downtime. I'm your host, Z. Spencer. In today's episode, Jennifer 2 joins Jackson Latka and I to fill in for Betsy Cable. Betsy is flying from the United States to Australia to Central Europe this month, speaking at RubyConf AU and Ruby on Ice. In our last episode, we tried to mitigate the recurring downtime by preventing duplicates of long-running background jobs and giving Sidekiq more concurrency. Unfortunately, neither of these had a big enough impact. In this episode, we shift towards solving the problem with more significant architectural changes. First, we upgrade Scout for more database performance data, and then we learn how to set up read replicas in RDS and configure it in Rails. Debugging Downtime is supported by viewers like you. If you like what we're doing, buy a season pass on our website, wecohere.com. We're 20% of the way to our first funding goal, and that will allow us to hire an editor to clean up the dead space, remove rabbit holes, and highlight the diamonds in the rough. We hope you enjoy the show. So we've been recording this whole time, so...
Oh, good. Avdi wants to know if we can upsell you singing to the DevM setup as part of the paid version.
Oh, so like, I sing...
Well, I mean, he didn't quite say that. He said, oh, singing is very exciting, and I interpreted.
Oh, so when I sing into the camera...
Well, I will tell you from my external observation that things seem to go better when you sing to the computer than when you curse at it.
I'm glad you've made us aware of this. All right, so we're only doing one recording, so we don't have to do any claps today, as far as I know. It's 10 o'clock, so I think it's time to get started. We will start with our traditional circle of appreciation, and since Jackson doesn't know Jennifer and Jennifer doesn't know Jackson, I'm not really sure. I'm not quite sure.
If you go Jackson
I'm getting to know Jennifer.
No, wait, no, that doesn't work.
If you go Jackson to Z, and then me to Jennifer, and then Jennifer to Jackson, that'll work.
Sure.
Unless Jackson, you said you know
No,
Jennifer?
I think I know more about Notably than he knows about me, so let's try this.
All right.
I know the basics. I know the basics from our call last week, and you can add on to my short description.
Let's try this.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jennifer 2, and I'm here with Jackson Latka, and he is the founder of Notably, which is this really cool moment sharing application where if you want to share your family's moments, whether they're video or audio or pictures with your family, you can do that, and you can pay for this, which means that the data is not something that is being mined for profit. So I think that's pretty cool. If you have kids, you might want to consider getting your extended family onto this service.
Once
Jennifer, you're hired. That was fantastic. That was I think that was probably better than any description I've ever given about Notably. So nice job.
I talk about Notably with my friends with kids.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love it. That's great.
Cool. So Jackson, you want to introduce say your name and then introduce me, I guess?
Sure. So my name is Jackson Latka, and I am the co-founder of Notably, and I'm a product designer and digital product strategist, and I've had the pleasure of working with Z and Betsy and now Jennifer over the last few sessions. Z is a co-founder and partner at Cohere, engineering studio and teaching studio for developers, and does some really cool stuff as far as making code interesting and accessible, and helping others learn some of the more intricate aspects of it from really well battle-tested developers.
And then I am Z, and Jennifer is my co-founder here at Cohere. She keeps me on the straight and narrow when it comes to spending my time on things that generate revenue instead of things that are personally interesting. And she's also a really great programmer who helps me not hand wave away silliness as, oh, this is fine, everything's okay. So expect her to groan relatively regularly and to keep me in line. But let's get started with what's happened since the last 2 weeks, and I'll Jackson, if you could kind of say what you did as a result of the last session, and then what happened, that would help us quite a bit. And
Sure.
Also, I would recommend turning your camera back on if you feel comfortable doing so, because we are recording your camera on the
Yes,
screen
I could do so. I can't see myself.
That's okay.
And actually,
you know.
okay, because I could do this for now, right?
Yeah, and then I would recommend switching back to the other one now. Like on your... There we go. Now we can see you again.
Great. So since I can't see myself, if I pick my nose or something, that's, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the last session, Z, maybe you could help me out here with the code that we actually pushed, but I went in and immediately changed the DB pool, reduced the DB pool from, it was up around 30, and I think we dropped it to 10. And also we changed the Sidekick concurrency. And immediately after doing so, everything kind of fell over. And so we reverted back and things stabilized, and then we pushed the pull request that Z had submitted. So Z, can you fill us in on what exactly was included in that request?
Yeah, so Sidekick unique jobs has the ability to lock the uniqueness for a period of time and then unlock after 30 minutes or whatever by default. And the later versions of Sidekick unique job change the default to never unlock, which feels good to me, but the early version that we are on still had that lock for 30 minutes, and if the job doesn't finish in 30 minutes, allow it to be recreated. And so my theory was, and it appears to be mostly incorrect, is that there were multiple jobs being created to do the same work because the lock was expiring, and so a new job for a long-running task was getting created, and those many long-running task jobs were fighting for rights to the database and started to cause the backing up of the write locks that we have seen, and that was what that patch did.
Okay, so we released that pretty immediately after reverting my previous changes, and for a while, for maybe 48 hours or so, it was pretty smooth sailing, and then we were right back to getting H12 timeouts and increased database connections, increased write IOPS and read IOPS at kind of intermittent times. And many of those, I would say, came back and self-corrected after maybe a period of 20 to 40 minutes or less in some cases. But in general, there was probably maybe 3 or 4 times since the last session that I had to reboot the database to really get it to come back. And I think in general, it's not highly correlated with traffic. And actually, you could see on this screen here that, with kind of the traffic there, but I do think that traffic combined with these timeouts does cause, get us to get to the point where the system can't really recover and we do need to reset the database.
Yeah.
And 48 hours, is that longer than it was before or about the same?
I would say about the same.
Okay.
There are certainly times we had gone that long in the past few weeks.
Mm-hmm. And was the amount of times that it happened about the same in the previous 2 week series? So
it has been.
It's like 5 times, and this time was another 5 times.
Yeah, at this point, I would say it would be hard to draw a correlation from what I've seen that we've made a positive impact on it.
So
Yeah.
changing the lock didn't hurt it, but if it helped, it didn't help enough.
I would say that's probably correct, yeah. And I did recently, during the last database restart, which I think was yesterday, I did also reduce the DB pool variable from 30 to 25.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make a difference?
I don't know if there's enough time.
Yeah, I haven't had to reset the database since then, but I believe we have had some H12 since then.
And can you remind me what an H12 is? It's some kind of Heroku error?
I think it's just a Heroku error for timeout, is my understanding.
For database timeout? Or?
So an H12, let's switch to the VNC session, we should be able to come back. It's doing the thing where, all right.
Yeah, let me switch back because I think it sometimes adjusts. Yeah.
Wow. So I'm gonna have to full screen mode myself, maybe? No. So if you can pull yourself out of full screen mode, that's destroying the resize stuff. So if you can get rid of full screen mode and just leave it be, there we go. So I know it's going to be a little bit smaller on your screen, but your screen is bigger than my screen. I mean, I can make my screen bigger, but I don't know if that's a good idea. All right, so here we are. Here's notably core. Pipeline doesn't have an owner, whatever. Notably core was deployed recently. If we look at the metrics, these are the H12 series, and those are defined as request timeouts. So I believe...
And I think it's anything longer than 30 seconds.
Yeah. So I believe basically we got 1,000 requests in a 2-hour period that we were unable to fulfill. And then in this 2-hour period was another 7,700 requests, 270, 8, 4, so on and so forth.
So in H12 is the application server isn't able to respond, and we believe that the reason for that is the database is locked up.
Yes.
Okay.
So the application can't finish, it cannot return a process. And if we look at AWS, which I did not log into beforehand, so who knows if it will still be logged into. No. And it does not. Okay. I need to...
Do you want this?
Oh god. No, I don't want that.
Okay.
I want my mouse.
Right.
I just want it to...
not fall over.
Well, I'm fine with it falling over. I'm less fine with it showing my password manager on the recorded screen. Alright. And I'm logged in. Alright. So if we look at RDS, so this is at 1800 UTC on the 10th. And if we look at the DB instances, and we look at the monitoring, the connections never hits this red line, which is interesting to me. And the CPU utilization never really has a big deal. But if we monitor for the last 3 days, because the 10th is in the last 3 days maybe, what you see is these spikes of IOPS.
Hang on, 10th for UTC might be...
So this is last 3 days. And this is 10 o'clock UTC. We start bursting up these IOPS here for the write IOPS. And then if you look at the read IOPS, they're also going pretty wild. And we still... and our DB connections kind of goes up, but it's not... I don't think that's the issue. It's still weird to me that they go up, but I'm guessing it's because Rails is allocating more connections in the pool because it's got too many that are locked. And I don't think it has anything to do with new services coming online. I think it's just the locking is causing issues. So...
And it's also interesting that those connections are not always released right away. It takes a while, even after a reboot.
That's not too surprising to me.
Okay.
I would expect that connections take a little while to be returned.
Okay.
But so there was another burst here right around 1 p.m. UTC. And I'm curious, like, we don't have any jobs that are getting fired off at that point, right? If we look at our workers, our Heroku scheduler, we can open Paper Trail and Scout as well. Like, well, there's the print story subscription that happens every day at noon. at midnight UTC.
And that's going to be like 8 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
And then this is happening at 7 UTC. This is happening hourly, so I don't know that that's the issue. But this daily task might be worth looking into, because if it's always happening at basically midnight UTC, oh no, we're out of logs.
Jackson, are your users mostly in the US?
Mostly, yes.
I wonder if it would be worthwhile to go to the Heroku scheduler and move all of those, offset them as much as possible, and stick them into that, I don't know, 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. time period.
The midnight UTC is an interesting time to fire that one. I think you're right. We should push that one later.
Wow, this is brutal.
Are these all users, Nick, that we're looking at?
What do we?
Yeah, it looks like we should be obfuscating all of that crap. Because all those email addresses are getting recorded in plain text at the database, which is scary. I'm not, so I was just looking at the timeline here, which gives you, so as you can kind of see, like, we see this
What is that?
burst in events that are being sent to the logging system. And I'm not sure if it's because it's at this boundary, and so that's when it reloads.
I think that could that just be something as simple as when paper trail runs out of.
That's might be what it is, because it's always at 1900.
It starts over, lets us log a bunch, and then it says we're done.
Yeah, I think
I did. Unfortunately, I think I did reduce that recently, the window of time, because I think last session had a lot more logging, but we weren't using it.
Yeah. Okay. That's a little difficult, but that's not a huge deal. So yeah, I mean, we could run this and see if it falls over.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's 10 in the morning, 1 p.m. on the East Coast.
All right. And I think the way we can do that is
And we think it's going to be that job, not one of the other ones?
Well, this one is the only one that runs daily, and it's pretty, it's pretty consistent in how frequently it starts tipping over.
Yeah. The others are hourlies?
Yeah, we recently removed our email digests from there, which were also going once a day. And we also removed our intercom sync. So we've been like peeling back the layers to see if they affect this, but we have not yet played with the print break.
All right, let's open a bash terminal.
Now let's see. So what this is going to do is this is going to look at all the book subscriptions, and is this going to pull all the photos that belong in those book subscriptions into the books?
Maybe we can look.
I believe that's what happens. Just want to make sure we know what we're triggering.
Should we run it and then look things up as it runs?
I don't know. I kind of feel like Jackson's point that do we know what this does is pretty important. So like, let's look at this job and go from and then kick it off. But I do want to kick it off within the next few minutes.
And Jackson, what is a book?
Okay, so in Notably, anyone who's a viewer, so in Notably, you could either have kids as an admin that you could post for those kids, or you could just be a viewer of various kids. Either an admin or a viewer can start a print book subscription, so an actual physical book that every 50 photos for the kids you follow, we automatically print a book and send it out.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's super cool, and it's like one of the only times that you don't have to actually be the content owner to be able to print a book. You don't have to have someone send you all these photos in order to print it. It just happens for the kids you pick.
Yeah, that's really neat. A friend of mine, her grandparents had, if you it would print out the email, and it sounds like the photo book version of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So here I am. I'm just going to start a Rails console. I'm curious. So I was just looking at this code here. StorySubscription.active.each order books. I don't know what order books does. My guess is it's a background job, but StorySubscription.active. I'm curious how many of these there are.
How many active subscriptions?
Yeah.
There's maybe 100 and so 100.
Nice.
Okay. So order books. What does that do? If pending books
imagine that
empty,
that actually probably submits the orders, right? Like batch submits all our book orders, our PDFs.
Yeah, it looks like it's creating 117 order objects. But what's an order?
Oh, the audio cut out. Can you say that again? What's the order?
Oh, sure. So order books, if there's no pending books, returns empty. Returns. But if there are pending books, it creates an order for those books. And I'm assuming creating this order...
I would guess that sends our PDFs to our book printer.
All right, so...
RPI order, yeah.
And I'm assuming this is the correct thing. And is there an after create? After create, process item purchases and queue PDF and notify books purchase. So this looks like what's happening is this entrance point is spinning out a bunch of branches in the processing. And so there's a bunch of jobs that are working. Oh gosh.
Let's run it and see if it falls over.
Okay, you're right.
I mean, Jackson, you okay with the service possibly falling over? Okay, great.
Yep.
Rake, print, what was it called?
I forgot.
Story subscriptions. Is this in line with your chaotic goodness?
You're not supposed to tell the viewers this.
Oh. Sorry. I shouldn't have shared your alignment.
It's okay. So Jackson, what do talents is identifying weaknesses in a system and finding ways to improve them.
But the finding the weaknesses is the core competency.
Like kicking it while it's down.
Anyone who grew up with siblings knows how to do this.
Oh yeah,
Some
I have 2 kids, so I understand.
All right, so the worker, we just kicked off a jarb. Weird. It looks like the worker.
Oh, that's always like that. That's always like that.
What
Yeah, it's reporting.
Or Sidekick. Are those places we could be watching?
Yeah, Sidekick. We should be able to see the queues. Right now, there's one that's busy. One worker is processing the storybook generator job. It started 50 seconds ago. And my guess is that is going to succeed, and then it's going to...
And then make 117 new jobs, right?
Or something. So here's 2 activity notifier jobs that are scheduled. Here's 26 enqueued jobs.
And those are just unrelated, right? Those are just people liking photos.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what those are. If you go back to those scheduled, those are just active people using, like posting a moment, liking a moment, that kind of thing.
Oh,
they like the jobs.
Oh.
Some are dead.
Every one of those jobs is a cute kid.
So, storybook generator job. These are all a month ago. So it's interesting to me that the busy job. All right, so enqueued just went down to 0. That's up to 4.
Oh yeah, that's always, those happen really quickly.
Yeah, most of them should. Did we see? Oh, here's scheduled. Nope, those are all ones that I think are just restarting themselves.
Just flying through. Yeah.
Did it
Looks like the busy's done.
Yeah, Busy and Acute are done. Heroku didn't seem to have any issues. It could be that
there were no books to process there in that time period.
Yeah, that's
depending on what the activity was today.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
What's RDS doing as far as those write jobs?
Oh, good question. Last hour.
DB connection stayed. That's good.
Well, all these look fine.
Yep.
Can we run it again?
Well, so the thing is, I think it's gentle. So because the pending books is empty, it's not going to do anything. But what we could do is we could go over each of the story subscriptions and see when their last pending book was or when their last books or orders were created.
Yeah, and see if that's 0.
Yeah. Whoops, that's not where we do that. We do that in Heroku. So if I do Rails, if I do Rails C, and then we do, is it storybook subscriptions? Story subscriptions? Storybook subscriptions? I give up. Story subscription. Not that one. There we go. All right, so we've got our story subscription dot user dot books dot last dot created at thing. Gosh darn it. Subscription dot all dot each ss dot user dot books dot last dot created at, and it did it again. So I have to get this perfect because I want to map it. And if I map it and I get their books dot last dot created at, it will yell at me for a reason. Is it not books?
Can we go back to the code? Where did we start?
We started at create order.
Pending books.
Ah, yes. So pending
but
books.
That's for story subscription, not for user.
Oh, so it's like, this is how you get the actual books.
Can we go to where we call pending books and run that? Will that get you the count?
That'll get me a single orders books. I wonder if we can do storybooks dot count group by date or something. So if we go here.
Have you read about Tally?
I don't know.
It's new enumerable, so it's we might not be on a new enough version, but there's something called Tally that is specifically for counting up stuff.
That looks like a good gem. Okay, so why is this mad at me? Where created at is greater than question mark, not just no value. So we made 6 books in the last day, 9 in the last 2 days. This doesn't feel to me like enough to send everything to Heddle.
Although I'm curious if each of those, like every single time that we're looking for photos to add to a book, like how many joins and how complex are those calls in order to go check, you know, who these belong to, which books to be added to, which books to be skipped. Is the moment public or private? And public, I mean like shared within the family, or private just between the admins?
That's a good question. So
it could get pretty complex.
Yeah, so it's got this pending books if the users order items with parent story. So it's checking to see if stuff is ordered, but that seems like a pretty cheap query. We can grab it and we can. So we can do like storybook.last. Or no, is this storybook or is this something else? It's a story subscription. So StorySubscription.last.
Can you paste?
Yes, I'm just worried that I accidentally exposed things.
Yeah, we don't want to show that.
Like the name and the address and shit. So we will not be able to publish this without doing a bit of overlapping, but I can do that. StorySubscription.last ss equals that one there. Whoops. All right, so we just loaded the story subscription, and story equals storybook or equals ss story one. User equals ss dot user one. And now if I look back here, I think I've defined each of these variables, user and story. So we'll just run. And there's none. So this user has no purchasables.
Can we, instead of user.last, use...
Oh, so instead of storybook.last, you want to do a...
Can we do it across all storybooks? Is that useful?
Maybe? So if here we have our story subscription. So you're saying if we go dot map do and then story equals ss dot story user equals ss dot user. Then we this command. Oh god, I'm not a computer.
So while you're doing that, I have to say that although this may correlate with some of the tips, it is certainly not the only time we see it. You know, there's been nothing clear that this lines up every time.
Yeah, that's a good point. So
it may contribute to it, but it's not the cause.
The query I just ran went pretty darn quick, and I did it on every single story subscription. So it doesn't seem like the pending books method is too expensive. So that call doesn't seem like the thing that's screwing things over. We could dive into the stuff that's happening in story create or order create and figure out whether or not these are expensive, but I don't think these are expensive either. It's just like
maybe creating the PDF is. Could that be?
Maybe. Let's see.
But yeah, I wouldn't guess the others.
I mean, it's happening asynchronously. Perform async item.purchasable ID.
Because sometimes I wonder if it's the PDF generation of a book or the zip generation of a user export that could happen at various times that maybe contribute to this.
Maybe. The export seems very much more likely. Could we run an export on a big user and see if that tips everything over?
So, for instance, we had one user that exported recently and had some trouble with it because it was like a very, very long process. And we're talking like, I don't know, maybe 100 gigabytes of stuff, several hundred gigabytes. So it was quite an intensive job.
Did that cause anything to fall over or just take a long time?
I'm unable at this point. I don't have the insight to be able to like actually correlate those. because it's hard to tell when someone fires off a job, and that happens completely. It's completely opaque from everything else.
It's not observable.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Is there a way for us to tell what users have a lot of stuff? Like
sure, but
order by number of moments, maybe?
yeah, I don't know that we'd want to show that here, but yeah, I mean, so if I try to export my moments, and this kind of leads into like a whole different thing that we don't need to get too far into probably, but the way that our exporter works is it's not smart enough at this point that if someone comes back every week and exports their stuff, it literally will take all their moments from the beginning of time, rather than what's happened in the last week. So each time they run that, it's really expensive. And I don't know that the jobs perform it, or maybe it is, but something to throw out there.
I mean, the thing that the thing that kind of concerns me is that we really don't have visibility into which queries are kicking our butts. So if you look at Heroku, RDS, one of the main features it has is you can observe the performance of your queries, and it can give you information about it. So it can be like, hey, this particular query pattern, and maybe this performance insights works. Well, that sucks. Contact here, get permission. Designed to quickly assess performance and guide customers. Performance is like detailed database through lightweight mechanisms, for instance, as an intuitive graphical interface. So that feels like almost what I want.
So are you talking about general calls? I mean, like, we know the activity call is very slow. We know that the moment calls need to be improved.
So queries have a shape, right? Which is like select these fields from these tables using these other fields or this hard-coded data as guides. And good, not logging, but performance monitoring systems, what they do is they expose that independent of the unique data. So it's like, hey, queries that do select from blah, 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 join across blah, 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 these are the ones that are eating up all of your time and attention, right? And so in Heroku's RDS, they give you that like as a list, basically, of, hey, here are the queries that lock the database the most. Here are the queries that when you run them, do the most Cartesian joins. These are the queries that that are beyond just n+1 level. These are the queries that are like, they take a long period of time to complete, right? As opposed to just they happen a lot, right? Because the n+1 that happen a lot, that's less interesting in this particular case than the here is a query or 3 queries that lock down the entire database.
And you're saying we can or we cannot get visibility into that?
I'm saying right now we don't have significant visibility into it because it is currently not configured to do that. So there's this...
Is that something we could easily turn on?
I don't know. I think so. Performance Insights enabled is off. So the risk if we run modify, so remember, I would also like to give you more gigabytes just to frickin' get past this issue. Because I think if we up your storage to like 700 gigs, remember how we upped it from 50 to whatever, and that gave us more IOPS? I kind of want to try that again, just to see if that helps it from falling over. Because the falling over is the killing bit, right? Like,
yes, although, I don't know, maybe counterpoint is that it seems like it's not a natural thing that's happening. So it's not like we just need more to naturally get through what we're going through. It's like something that is just scaling up until it's cut. And I wonder if it's just going to scale higher.
Maybe one thing we can do is make a note of, we'll make some other changes, and if the database still falls over, then Jackson can come in and increase this and see if that makes a difference later.
Yeah, because I think I agree with you, Jackson, that it looks like it's hitting this pinnacle, and I agree with you, Jennifer, that it's Like, we don't have to do that now. Like, we could do the performance, we could enable performance monitoring without also changing the storage, and doing those independently feels better from a one change perspective.
And it could also, but you're saying it could be a good band-aid.
Yeah, because like the fact that it's recovering on its own now tells me that once that query finishes chugging, or that set of queries, or whatever it is that's causing the issues, once that stops being a problem, it's, you know, pretty okay. And, you know, that's not a guaranteed solution, but it might be a reasonable intermediate step to see if we can get past this suffering.
Yeah, I hear you. That probably would get us through most days until we hit holidays and that type of thing, and then it's probably not helpful, right?
Yeah, but in the
as
meantime,
we saw over Christmas. Yeah, totally.
like,
yeah. So Jackson can hang on to that idea for if the other things we do today don't work.
Yeah. So where the heck did?
I think maybe is it over here in the sidebar?
And performance insights that.
Over on the under the AWS logo. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if we go here, it's gonna tell us how to turn this on.
Enabling.
And is it really not scrolling more, or is that just our weird window?
Contact your account administrator.
No, he's not scrolling it. He's just looking at exactly where he highlights.
Yeah, I can't scroll any further. It looks like the
Contact
bar.
Your what?
I think I'm already an admin, right?
To grant, please apply provided custom policy to. Where's the provided custom policy?
Oh, so I could probably do this.
Maybe? It's weird. Enable performance insights. So you might need to
on a different machine here and see if I could do that.
Yeah, because it looked like I didn't have the ability to check that box when I clicked the modify.
Okay, AWS. The other thing is,
no.
So let's start with staging, I guess, and see if we can turn it on for staging. Yeah, and I'm assuming, Jackson, that you're looking through how to enable that IM policy for my user.
yeah, I'm seeing if I could just enable this.
Wait, can you go back up one? Yeah, monitoring is enhanced monitoring.
I think this is staging, the server that I'm on right now. So
it is.
I don't think enhanced monitoring is the same thing.
I think there was an enhanced monitoring on production.
Yeah, production had it on.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yeah, so if we look at enhanced monitoring.
Is this staging or
this is notably encryption. Where did it go? I thought enhanced monitoring was turned on.
It was in the list of.
Oh, if I go to modify, that's how I get there.
Okay, with full privileges, I still get the same performance insight screen as UZ.
Oh,
but I need to contact my account administrator.
Yeah, so this is.
And I'm on like the root account.
What if you go to, instead of that screen, you go to notably DB and then the modify screen?
Okay. DB. I'm on production.
Because it's not like your system is massive, right? Like the amount of current connections, like it's the database storage and performance is not really an issue. There's something that is causing it to be an issue. And I think your inclination that it might be related to exports because of how quasi ad hoc it is makes a lot of sense. So while you try and figure that out, I want to start looking at the export job.
Great.
And if
enable enhanced monitoring. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's so here let me show you. If you go to modify, or not modify, so enhanced monitoring is one thing, but there's something else for performance monitoring, and it's just not visible because Performance Insights has to be enabled.
Oh, I see.
But we can't get it unless you provide a custom policy to an IM user or update to an existing IM user.
Okay, I'll take note of this and look into how to get this applied.
Yeah, because I think that's probably going to be super helpful.
Okay.
I mean, the other thing is we could consider making an Aurora cluster. Aurora is pretty awesome. But anyway.
Do we want to bump out the Heroku job to a couple hours in the future off of midnight UTC?
Oh,
this Moments Exporter?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking that what we want to look for is
not the Moments Exporter, right, Jennifer? Are you talking about the rake job still?
Yeah, I'm talking about the rake job, the daily job, because if we shift that by a number of hours, and
I think it's absolutely worth doing that. That makes.
Then at least we would know where the problem is, if that makes a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
what do you think? So midnight UTC, maybe.
Maybe 6 or 7.
4 a.m. UTC or something. 5 a.m.
No.
Or 6, 7.
Then if you have too many West Coast users, then that's
Yeah.
gonna be no good.
Good
so
point.
If you shift it to 7 UTC, then that should put you at 3 in the morning East and midnight West.
Perfect.
Yeah. So 4 a.m. Wednesday. Or 4 a.m. Eastern time is 9 a.m. UTC. So 2 a.m. Eastern is 7 UTC. Is that what you're just saying?
Yeah, let's go all the way to 9. Cause, wait, what was 9 in?
9 was 4 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, let's do 9 because 4 a.m. Eastern parents hopefully aren't awake, and West Coast parents hopefully also aren't.
Oh, because you're worried that West Coast people are waking up, are at 11 o'clock clicking export with their whiskey.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah, so 9 in the morning UTC.
All right, so if we go to our scheduler and we change our time to daily and we say it's due at
9. Yes.
And we save it. Theoretically, this will maybe prevent downtime from happening.
Yeah. When we've looked at downtime in the past, is it usually around the same time of day, or is it all over?
It is primarily in my afternoon, evening.
Okay, good. So it's primarily the same time of day.
Which is also, generally I would say afternoon Eastern time into evening Eastern time is when I experience most of them. But that also highly correlates with usage too. So
yeah, so if I look at notably DB and I say give me the last 2 weeks and show me the right IOPS for the last 2 weeks, we should see downtime.
What are they correlated to?
So this is at 3 a.m. UTC.
7
p.m. 7 p.m. UTC, almost midnight UTC. This is not downtime I'm expecting. It might have been a period of sleep time.
Self-recovery, yeah.
And then these are also periods of downtime around this time.
Yeah, this is a good view for it.
Okay. So that does mean that the spikes are going to be happening closer to your midnight, Jackson. So something you might want to keep in mind.
Well,
like if
they might be.
They might. Maybe they'll just not come back.
I mean, if it depends on whether or not this storybook export job is really the culprit. Like shifting,
true.
if this isn't really the culprit, if it's a little bit painful because it's doing some heavy queries at a time when you already have load.
But if it's not causing the spikes, then it won't change the spike times.
I mean, if it's a slight confounding factor, then it might decrease the probability. But I think Jackson's point on exports are expensive for reasons makes a lot of sense. So if we look at this export, there's the start processing function, which delegates out to a moments exporter. And the moments exporter processes itself.
Wait, The moments exporter, all of this stuff. What calls this?
I believe a moments exporter job is kicked off by a control.
Oh, this is the hey, I want to back up my 100 gigs of videos.
Yeah.
And that's what. Okay.
So there's this export resource object, which is probably exposed via the API. Jackson, what is the API docs? Where do they live? They're like.
Let's see. I'll try to track them down.
I thought it was like api.notably.com or something. I know it should be in my history.
I hope it's that simple.
All right. So we've done one thing that we think might maybe potentially mitigate the risk. We have an action item for Jackson to turn on performance insights once we figure out how to do so that we can more easily get visibility into queries that are falling over.
Are there other Heroku add-ons we should be considering? There's a bunch that have free tiers. I wonder if there's any that would give us more visibility into what's... I haven't used Scout, so I don't know what it might show us.
Yeah, we can look at the... No, we have to update our gem.
Okay.
All right. Well, here's an action that we definitely can take that'll make... Oops. So let's do this real quick. Update Scout for great DB analysis. That is a good point, Jennifer. I like that as an opportunity. Scout. Let's do greater than 2.3. Then do bundle.
Like, would adding Skylight be useful?
Skylight would be useful.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. Oh no, this is easy. Gem uninstall bundler. Gem install bundler -v 1.17. Yeah. So this is because bundle 2.0 is incompatible with stuff, and
yeah.
For now it's better to just stay at 1.7.
Great.
All right, and Scout. I feel like Scout is safe to upgrade.
Yes.
We believe that Scout may provide useful insights into which queries are taking a long time to resolve or which ones are poorly optimized.
So I shared a document with you, Z, and hopefully Jennifer has access to. But a couple, so we've taken some notes over the years, or over the last year, I would say, on some of these slow calls, and I would say the activities call, the moments call, are two to look into for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right, but so there's so database locking doesn't happen on read very often. I mean, it does if the database is locked for read, but the way you get database locking is, and Jennifer knows more about this than I do, so she will probably butt in, is a write takes a long time. Like, there's a transaction or a write that's taking a long time to resolve, and so your read queries queue up behind this unresolved write query, and this causes locking. So one way to resolve that is to set up a read replica so that all of your really expensive read queries, like, hey, get me all my moments, they always hit the read replica. And those expensive, and if there's a long write, it doesn't get in the way of those reads. And so that's one way to decouple this concern.
So is this related to what you're saying? So in one attempt to fix the slower activities call, we added a 45-day index, and it rebuilds that index via a cron job every every month. Is that kind of the thing that you're referring to?
No, I mean that's definitely a possible solution, but that index might be really expensive because the way that indexes work is there's indexes that are updated on our indexes are generally updated on write. So if you have an index where thing X is related to thing Y and thing Y is related to thing Z, and so you write X and it triggers a bunch of re-indexing, if it does that within a transaction, that can cause the database to lock.
I wonder if that's related.
But
or attempt to fix it.
The solution of having a read replica seems cheaper than possibly than unwinding that index.
Okay.
Because the way a read replica works is it doesn't get new information until the right transaction is complete. So theoretically, our reads would never get backed up if we spun up a read replica.
And does that mean an entirely new database?
It does, but it doesn't have to be very big. I mean, it might, like, I'd probably make it 1-to-1 with your current one, just for now, and then we can talk about scaling it down once we get an idea for how it hurts. But I want to upgrade Scout first, and then we can talk about doing that.
Yep, and I'll be right back.
Is new big enough? That's the right next step.
Notably has a 30 gigabyte database, so it's no longer small enough to memory on a single machine, and memory allocation for a read database is a lot different than a write heavy database. I don't know if it's the right next step, but it feels like a reasonable possible step.
Are the moments stored in the database?
So there is a record in the database for every moment.
But it's like a ID that points to something else.
But yes,
okay,
but it's an ID that points to something else. So I believe
So that 30 gigs is coming just from sheer number of moments.
Well, and database index size, right? So if we go back to AWS real quick, and if we switch this to swap usage. Yeah, swap usage isn't that interesting. So free storage space, like it's a 400 some odd gig hard disk, and our free space is, if we look at it, our free space is 400 gig, and our total size is
half a gig. That's units was megabytes.
No, that's
right?
Gigabytes.
Okay, I thought I saw MB.
It was 400,000 MB.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes much more sense.
Yeah. But if we look at the size of the server's disk, it's 450 gigs. So there's 50 gigs in use here, and I don't I mean, it's GI and not G. Yeah, we'd have to do the math to figure out if I'm just blowing smoke. But it seems like it's between 30 and 50 gigs of space is used for the database.
Okay. All right. Let's finish the Scout thing.
Oh, yeah. Let's go to GitHub's. GitHub. Core. Do we want to deploy this after CI runs, or do we want to wait on that?
We'll see where we are when it's done. Can we also add in some of the other add-ons now?
Oh, you want to look to see if there's other things that might benefit this?
Yeah, like I don't know if New Relic or Skylight or
Scout is New Relic.
Okay, wait, it is.
I mean, it's not the same brand.
Okay, but
it's an APM.
Yep.
Yeah. So monitoring might have some interesting stuff. So Scout, New Relic. I really don't want to get into adding another thing here. Paper Trail works pretty well. I like the light, makes logs fun-ish.
Skylight, I know that sometimes that's helpful for database expensive stuff.
Skylight would be several hundred, if not $1,000 a month with
There's
the
a
current.
here.
So the
they've got
free,
too much. They're
they
processing too much.
They have a ton of active users, and the pricing is, so you get 100,000 free requests per month, and if we look at the requests per minute, there's if we do past, come on, throughput. Yeah, so the request per minute is high enough that we're looking at 5,000 requests per sec for, does that say, yeah, so it's 5,000 requests in a 2-hour period. So our average kind of throughput is way above 75,000.
Which means that if you use it at the free level, you would basically be taking a little dip sample.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that off the top of my head.
Set it at the free tier and hook it up, and then it will be take a little dip sample and then be like,
oh, that's not how they do it.
Oh, okay.
No. I mean, you could set it up like that, but you'd have to
no, we'll automatically adjust. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Fail.
So I mean, there is ways to set up your sampling system to sample pseudo randomly. So on a request by request basis, enable Skylight or enable not Honey Badger. What's the one? Honeycomb.
Yeah.
But that feels like way more work than we're going to be able to get done in the next hour.
Let's get out of here. Is there anything in Scout that we should look at that would be useful to us now? I don't know if you've already thoroughly explored what kind of information it has.
So it's got useful stuff in it, but I think because so we can see what's oldest. So this moment exporter can take up,
I don't even understand.
How many milliseconds? That's 600 seconds?
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet it takes up 600 seconds and then it pukes itself out. Encode asset status, if we look at the activity notifier is the biggest background worker.
Oh, because that's constantly, it's saying, hey, you got a new picture of your whatever it is.
Yeah, so we're looking at 70 of those per minute, which makes a ton of sense.
Do you think anyone uses this for their pets instead of their babies?
You'd ask Jackson. Jackson, are you back?
That's right.
Oh, he's gone. I thought I heard him come back. Where did he go?
Maybe someone came by and picked up his earbuds and then put them down.
He's physically there. He just can't hear us.
Or we can't hear him.
Or we can't hear him.
Oh, but now he's paying attention, so that seems promising.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, we can't hear him. You might have to drop and rejoin again. Or nope, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Drop and rejoin?
Oh
no, but he's the video.
No.
Alright, so what we'll do is we'll be entertaining and amusing for 30 seconds.
Oh no. Okay, you have to sing.
I'm not gonna sing.
Why not?
Fine. Jackson, drop for 30 seconds. And then reconnect and share your screen. I'm really mildly embarrassed, but
That was good scanning.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah, that's good scanning.
Okay, I don't even know what scanning means, but I'm gonna pretend
scanning is getting the beats of your words down.
Okay.
You know what Shakespeare does?
The
Can you hear me?
pentagram
iambic
system?
pentameter, and it's a dot da dot da dot da dot.
Yeah. All right, Jackson's
Jackson?
back.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Good.
All right, let's get our screen
Yes.
share.
Pets, yes, like crazy. Lots of pets. And lots of people with kids and pets.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's.
Okay, so I need the screen share, and
VPN.
I'm picking the application window.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Is it application window?
Yeah, if you pick the application window for VNC, it'll be a lot easier, and we won't have to worry about you accidentally sharing Slack. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I should have done that before. Okay.
Well, that's, there's that expression of hindsight being 20/20. All right. So where were we? Oh yeah, we were
looking at Scout to see if there was anything useful here.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about pets instead of babies.
Yeah. So this is the one that takes the most time. This exporter, as you kind of mentioned.
Yep. Storybook generator's up there too, but not close.
It looks like if the execution time. Oh, look at that! Look at that! What time is that? That is 7 to 8 p.m. Is that Eastern time? Oh God.
If you do the last 30 minutes, you can tell what time it is now.
Oh yeah, that's true. I want to set this up so that we can see the 11th and 10th. Oh, we can already see the 10th. So that didn't happen on the 10th. So that's not why it fell over. Right? Because the 10th we had a fall over and nothing fell over here. So let's see if other things happen.
Okay, now related to that activity notifier job, just to loop back to a previous point we touched on in a previous session, was the idea that those SNS errors, so something's happening with, we're using Amazon SNS for notifications, and there's a lot of errors, and so we actually, as one potential thing, we stopped looking at those errors, right? We stopped them from showing up.
Well, yeah, we discard the errors. We just don't retry.
Can you go back for a sec?
Oh, to the activity notifier.
Yeah. What are those? The claw marks.
These?
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's just it looks like a rendering error from 4 to 6. So it went 4 to 5 and then 5 to 6, and it doesn't look like it's meaningful.
Okay.
It just looks like it's a rendering issue.
All right.
Or maybe it's because there's so much less traffic. I don't really know.
I don't know, but like regular claw marks across your graph are kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
could be rendering. It is very regular, so either it's regular and that means something, or it's regular and it's nothing.
So what is the time? It says the time is now 7:05 p.m. and I feel like that is what time it is in UTC. So if you look at last 3 days for activity notifier, so the 10th, so this is the 11th. So here's the 10th around 7:89, and then everything's normal, and then we kill the app, right? It's trying to recover. So let's look at this encode asset status job, because that is in the critical queue. Ooh, nope, that's not the right time. But these start happening.
What is yellow? Yellow's throughput.
Yeah, the amount of jobs processed per minute for this job.
But that doesn't line up with. Or does it line up with the app falling over? That's the 11th, and we were looking at, what was it, the 10th at what time?
It started right at midnight, I thought. Like right here. So we can also pull that up in RDS land. Well, no, let's not do it in RDS land because clocks are unreliable across platforms. So I'm going to go back to the overview and see right here, I feel like, or no. Last 7 days, overview. Here is the exceptions. Here's when the exceptions started happening, right? This chunk here? Or am I missing something, Jackson?
I'm not sure if that's the exact time. Let's see. I can give you a specific time. Let me give you a couple times.
Heroku, because that's where the errors were.
So
I've taken notes on every one of these, so I could tell you on the 11th, 1800 to 1900 UTC.
So yeah, 1800. So the 10th from 1800 to.
Oh yeah, on the 10th, 1800 to 1900, 20 to 21.
Can we write
23
down this, just like write it down someplace and.
Probably.
Here, let me just
210.
copy these over to you.
What time is it?
I can't remember. I can't remember. This is why I need to write everything down. And
Okay, I just sent them to you, and that's for the 10th. So the 10th was 1800 to 1900. I'm going to give you a few windows.
Oh,
Jackson
so where
sent
are you sending them at?
It looks like down in your other screen.
Oh, and Cohere notably, perhaps?
Great, yeah. Let's get
And
that.
those are for the 10th.
And these are when a bunch of H12s showed up, right?
That's right. And on the third one, 2330 to 2350, 2350 is when I did the database reboot.
All right, and so this one that you sent me is all from the 10th. These ones that are on my screen right now.
Correct.
Do you have any from the 11th or just the 10th?
Yes, I have some from the 11th.
So
do you want those?
let's focus on one for
6,
now.
8, and 11, 30.
Okay, so these are all on February 10th in UTC. So DB Rebuke happened at 2330. So on February 10th, we should see a 20. We don't see. I guess I'm not seeing it showing up here, which feels weird to me. Oh, no, here we go. I just had the response time in the wrong spot. Go away. So 10 p.m. So it started having issues
6 p.m.
at around 6 p.m.
Yep. 6 to 7.
And is that aligned with that value here?
Yep, exactly.
Oh yeah, 1800 is 6
and then
p.m.
8 p.m.
And then recovered, and then everything kind of hit the fan again, and it re-recovered in the morning again.
No, the big one is when I restarted it.
This one is when you restarted?
Yeah, I think so.
What about the one before 6 p.m.? Does that correspond with anything? You went too far. Go right.
No, this is 6 p.m. 6 a.m. Oh, you meant 6 p.m.
Yeah, and so the one before 6 p.m. is noon. So did we see H12s around noon? And did we see H12s around...
So this would be the 10th around noon. There's the 9th, here's 10th. I mean, not really.
No, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because what that says to me is if we didn't see H12s, there's like some overlap between the spikes and the H12s, but not anything useful. Because sometimes spikes happen and we don't get H12s.
But it's weird that we're not getting any H12s for some requests that are.
I would say they're
6 minutes.
really closely correlated. It's just that some of them don't register enough to cause our threshold to display in Heroku as errors.
Oh, so you're still seeing degraded performance, but not...
Yes, and if you actually go to the Heroku view of the Heroku monitoring and don't just look for the red dots, like scroll down to beyond memory usage response time. See, you could see all the response time spikes, but only the reds are when it's been that elevated for like 5 minutes or something.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So I think they're one-to-one correlated.
And again, if we zoom back in, so if we look at this and we look at the background jobs, so this is core, this is the jobs, this is the web endpoints. All right, so I want to look at the ones that appear to take a lot of time to run and see if those have any correlations. So this is at midnight, but it seems like it's only an active record for a very small period of time, 380 milliseconds, so I don't really care about that one. Moments exporter. This is 10th of February, also at midnight, nothing exciting. Story subscriptions. Nothing exciting. Did I look at the storybook generator? I'm sorry, I might have skipped that one. Check.
Nothing.
Nothing exciting. Encode asset status. Here, Around 1, it starts puking, but it doesn't seem like it's out of the ordinary. It just seems like normal stuff.
Maybe different jobs are taking turns beating up on the app.
Maybe.
I think that's possible. What if it's not background jobs at all, right? What if it's, maybe I guess this goes back to what you were saying about read versus write, but the actual moment calls?
Yeah, so if we look at the response time for the particular controllers, like, they do start freaking out, like the time consumed for the moments controller index, that's the big one, and that's why I kind of want us to switch to a read replica. At least just for this, because this one, like, it starts puking right around the times, or where is it? Yeah, so 6 p.m. it starts just freaking out, and it's like it's stuck in active record for a long ass time. And this is what you're seeing from a customer perspective of the consequence. But
Okay,
I'm not
I see.
convinced that this is the cause.
And even if it's many of those stacked up on one another, it's still probably not the cause.
I mean, it seems unlikely to me to be the cause, which is why I'd like to try a read replica. Because if we set up a read replica and we divert all the reads for moments to that read replica, and it stops falling over, then it tells me that, yeah, reads were somehow locking, which feels weird as hell to me, but I'm not like a database magician. I just know enough to be dangerous, and maybe reads can lock more, and I'm full of shit. The middleware stuff I think is interesting, but a red herring, because the middleware is going to fall over at approximately the same rate the active record falls over. I don't think it's a causation even.
I forgot what we're looking at right now.
This is the moments controller index endpoint, which is a query that we know is expensive because it is doing a bunch of Cartesian joins. But those joins are only read joins, so it's weird to me that it would be weird to me if this was the cause of the block and not just a consequence of the lock. So like all of these are reads except for this one, this moments controller create, and this uploads controller create.
Is there anything cheap we can do to the moments controller index? I'm thinking like pagination or limits or anything like that.
The problem is we tried diving into that, but that doesn't solve the issue of the locking. And so even if we paginate, if it's locked for 10 records, it's going to be locked for 5 records. And we've already stepped that down to like 20 records or something. It's pretty tiny.
Yeah, it used to be like 50. It's been 20 for a long time. I think we're not pulling that much.
Yeah, so here it is falling over at 5 a.m. because you restarted the system.
Okay.
And then this is the creates happening. So it looks like is this the throughput or, yeah. So, no, this isn't the throughput.
That's the throughput, yeah.
It's yellow.
So let's look at the response time. So right when it starts falling over, so it's not like the response time has an issue for this until we get to the point where the database is down and you put it into maintenance mode. And then it just jumps.
Sense.
What's allocations?
Allocations is the amount of memory allocations. So like, hey, I wrote some memory.
Okay.
I wish there was a way to see jobs over a particular time. Because, like, there's got to be... So this allocates 23 megs at most, which is a lot, but not debilitating. And the exporter, like, it just doesn't happen enough for it to have been the culprit. I guess let's look up read lock. Can querying Postgres for reads cause locks for other reads? But the issue is writes. Why is there so many writes? Oh, interesting. A repeatable read transaction which wants to insert data consistency may need to take out a lock on an entire table, which could block other users from accessing or using that table. That seems... non-repeatable read, phantom read.
I'm not sure how quickly we could set up a read-only replica.
I'll be done in 2 minutes.
What?
Sorry. It's actually pretty easy to make a read replica in AWS. You literally say, I want this, I want that, and done. This is gonna... Oh, nope, I can't do it because you didn't give me... I don't have access.
But, which is good.
Why? I was gonna charge... It's only like $100 a month. Come on. Jackson, how do you feel about us creating this read replica? Or did we lose you again?
No, he's there. He's popping his ears back in.
Oh. I still can't hear him.
Oh, no.
Oh, computers. Gonna switch. Ah! Still can't hear you. Weird.
Nope.
I don't know.
Nope.
I can go back to singing. It's odd though, because he's not muted in the system.
Yeah.
So, thinking about this.
Okay, so far we have...
And if
Yay! Hey, you're back!
And you're gone again.
Okay. So far we have changed the timing on the Heroku scheduled job. And we've done a little bit so that way we can get more data out of Scout.
Yes.
And Jackson has a plan to up the amount of space in AWS.
Yes.
We've got about half an hour.
Yes.
So I think we can do one more thing, probably.
We can't hear
Jackson.
you again. I think it's your headphones. Because you were fine until you put them on, and then it went weird again.
It's that Bluetooth thing.
Yeah, Bluetooths are bad.
Cables for life.
I'm all wired in. Check this action out. Yeah.
What? You use Bluetooth, don't you?
Yeah, but I have a cable that I plug it into when I have to hop on a call. Because it doesn't always work. Alright, Jackson. I don't know how sound works on computers, so I apologize. But
last thing we were doing was we were checking if you would be okay with adding a read-only replica. Z was estimating that at $100 a month. Month?
Yeah.
And if you were okay with that.
Alright.
But he can't do that because you set up the permissions correctly to stop him from being able to do such a thing. Yes.
I disagree.
I think it was very, very thoughtful to go for more restrictive rather than less.
Whatever. Z is not authorized to perform IM pass roll on resource.
So I wonder if it would be viable for Jackson to do this part on his computer, and
yeah.
What do we need to do on, if anything, on the code side?
So what we need to do is we need to figure out why Jackson can't talk anymore, because computers are terrible, and maybe that's buying him a USB microphone. But the thing that we need to do in the near term is we need Jackson to share his AWS we need Jackson to log into AWS and follow through the create read replica workflow so that on the code side we can tell moment models to read from the read replica.
Do we want to do that here or in parallel?
I guess, yeah, Jackson, if you want to start setting up the read replica and then somehow magically communicate that that is up without using words.
If you wave, I've got my iPad with aerial spaces set up, so if you wave enough, the motion will attract our attention, probably.
Yeah. Or you can mention me in Slack, and I should see that show up in our shared Notably channel. So yeah, I agree with Jennifer. We should go back to parallel. So how to configure active record to read from a different pool than it writes from.
WRITES.
My spelling is amazing.
All right.
Jackson asked a very important question, which is, do we have to make client changes? And the good news is, no! We can tell it to use a different connection pool for reads than for writes at the active record level. Total number through a pool, after a block and wait. When it can't get it, it'll time out. And if it can't get it, it will expand the amount of connections.
I don't think any of this is talking about using different read and write pools.
Yeah, that's the frustrating bit. There's supposed to be a way to do that, but I don't think it's in this.
Can you change your Google search to search for writing instead of correction? So if you go back to the one you started earlier.
Separate reads and writes in active record. Aha!
Yeah.
Thank you, Stack Overflow from 2016. The octopus gem. Only problem is when the secondary is down, it doesn't redirect queries.
That seems like a problem.
Well, it's less important.
Can we check out how popular this?
Popular.
I'm just wondering about maintainability and who's used this and like. If you look under Ruby gems, look at.
There's another one. It's libraries.io.
What? All right.
That does it across stuff and gives you stuff like, is it semantically versioned? Okay. So octopus. Yeah. Source rank is 16. Few dependencies. Regular releases. Got a lot of stars, a lot of forks, a lot of watchers, a lot of contributors.
Yep. And Jackson wants to know if we can walk through replica settings. So I think that means we'll go to aerial spaces, and then if Jackson shares his screen, we can watch.
Yeah. So you might need to stop sharing the VNC so you can share a browser and do the screen juggling. All right. So once that gets set, once Jackson figures out how to share back the correct screen, which may take a little time, I can navigate through that. It's also
Good
weird having a quiet driver, like a silenced driver. I know have you ever done that in like a code retreat where it's like you're not allowed to talk to each other during the entire session?
So the last code retreat I went with your housemate Logan, and we haven't paired together in about 15 years. So we were really excited to do that, but then our dance cards kept getting filled up, and so finally after like 3 or 4 runs we got to pair with each other, and then the moderators announced no talking. So we had this epic fight about the mutability of objects without talking.
Nice. So I can see your screen now. So I think all we really want to do is say that yes, this is publicly accessible, because we don't want to deal with making it only accessible within the VPC. And then enable encryption is that if you scroll up. I don't know if we want to enable encryption, so let's leave it off for now. We can always create a new read replica later. No for multi-AZ. General purpose SSD is fine. That is the same size as your current primary. If we scroll down, we do want to enable enhanced monitoring. And we want to give it the role of not default, but an RDS monitoring role. Yep. And yeah, create read replica. And so this is going to be not cheap, but it's also going to give us a chance. Oh, we need to name it. Let's call it notably db-read. Right. Yay. So it's going to start spinning up. And theoretically, this now is visible to me on my vnseed command. So if you share the shared screen again, we should be back to functional levels of utility here. Yeah, so there's db read.
And right now we are in the AWS console, and we can see the read replica in the AWS console.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Got video back.
Yes. All right. So at some point this will spin up, and we will have to tell it to do a thing. So it looks like Octopus exists. Normally they have like,
and that looks like a pretty nice commit pattern.
Yeah, the releases are pretty regular. It's not 1.0 yet, so that's worrisome. It's got more than one maintainer. And what we would set up is replication with a read replica, because we don't care about sharding. So...
And should we go back to the Google search and see if there's other things to be using other than Octopus?
I do in a second, but okay. I want to get an idea for the shape of Octopus first. Alright, so it looks like you configure it. You say which replica is available, and then you use this .using syntax for particular queries.
We can probably replace that wording with replica instead of something racist.
Yeah, well, that's why I've been using replica instead of like master slave. Octopus using all do. So I think that uses everything. So, ooh, this is scary. So this is still for sharding, but if we just don't want sharding, we just want read replicas. Replication. The replicated database, Octopus will send writes to master, reads to reader, follower. You should specify if your application is fully or just some models. For default, we'll assume that your application is fully replicated. Perfect. So if we say Octopus is replicated at true, and we put in the read 1, read 2, then theoretically all of the reads should go to the single service that we care about. I'm also in favor of looking for other gems.
Yeah, or if there is anything active or anything built in.
Read replica active record. Yeah, because I don't want to get into sharding. That's way too much. Replica active record. There's Octopus. Yada yada. Contactually. Yes, of course. That makes sense. Makara. Thread safety. Yes, that feels good to me. Community support. And I like Instacart from a maintenance of software. It looks like this is owned by TaskRabbit.
Do you want to libraries.io this?
Yes, I do. And Jackson, if you have snarky comments to make, if you make them in the Slack Cohere notably, we can read it and can comment on them. This is JavaScript. Let's switch to Ruby. That did not work. Is it Makura? What the heck?
What?
I don't think that's accurate. Which of these is it?
Definitely not.
Stories.io appears to be lying about this. So what if we go to Ruby Toolbox and check Makara? I'm assuming I'm pronouncing this correctly. See, Ruby. No, they updated the Ruby Toolbox. It's got more usability stuff. Okay. Weird. Oh, there it goes. It is in a healthy, maintained state. Releases regularly. They have a community chat room. That's exciting. Awesome. Great. I'm with my. Let's get the shape of it again, because Octopus had some benefits where it's like, oh, it's cool. Base proxy, your proxy connection. Okay, this looks hard. I don't want to do this. Assuming you don't need to split. If you do need to. Oh god, this seems harder to use than Octopus. Starting to get some traffic. 95-80% reads. Let's break that up. Simply access the proxy. General select statements will go with it. So read replica. Anything else will go to the primary. The way you do it is you add Makara.
So it looks like Makara will do the splitting at the database command level for you, and Octopus wants you to say whether you're going to use if you'll use the primary or the replica.
I think Octopus allows you to do either. So you found yourself. So where is the code? So like the database.yaml, if we do this and we say, hey, for production the adapter is the MySQL2 Makara adapter, and then we add this subconfig, what will be Postgres obviously. Do we need to write any code differences?
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying is it looks like Makara, you set it to use Makara, and then it automatically says all writes go to primary, all reads go to your read replica.
Yeah.
And for Octopus you have to be more explicit, so it depends on whether you want to have. Yeah. It depends on what you want to do.
So your read of this is, if you're only interested in the Active Record database adapter, here you go, and this is additional stuff if you want it.
Yes.
And so we don't need this stuff, even though it's taking a prominent location in the README, and we just need, theoretically, a database YAML with these changes to it. Now, from a Heroku perspective, is notably core staging, what is its Rails enved? So if I run a console in staging, is this staging or is this production? Because if this is production, then we probably need to use environment variables, but that's what they recommend anyway. And we could probably do a thing where we just don't use environment. We just don't do it if the environment variable isn't set. Or we use the same value. I wonder if that would cause issues. Anyway, rails.m.staging. Good. Production. Perfect.
Okay, good.
Great. Okay, so what we can do.
So do you want to go Makara or do you want to go Octopus?
I don't care either way. I think both of them have the same feature set. Like the configuration, they basically say, hey, if you're fully replicated, then you don't have to do anything fancy. You can just specify it in the shards.yaml and say it's replicated on production, and this is your read replica. and theoretically everything will be fine. But if you need sharding, then you have to do more complicated stuff.
Yeah, but we don't want to do that.
Yeah. So if we go with octopus, it'll give us sharding in the future, which seems unnecessary, but maybe it's not. And
how many downloads did Octopus have? Because Makara was around 1 million, I think.
So Octopus has 71 contributors. And then where did Ruby Toolbox go? And Jackson has a good question. Ruby Toolbox.
So to answer Jackson's question, I think one thing that might be useful is to let the other experiments run for a couple of days and then see if that made a difference. If it didn't make a difference and you're still in the same state, then deploy the change that we're going to push up that will let you use the read replica. If that makes a difference, then you could revert it, shut down the replica, and then decide what you want to do. How can you make this more cost effective? But I think the helpful thing here is figuring out if setting up a read replica will fix Notably's problems.
Yeah. And
then if it will fix Notably's problems, then the question is, how do I do this in a not cost prohibitive way?
Okay, so AR Octopus has a bunch of stars and forks, and we've got that open here.
3 million downloads.
Yeah.
Okay.
However, if we search for Makara, which takes a little time, chug, 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 chug. It's 1 million downloads, but it doesn't have the list of contributors, which is weird. So the amount of contributors here is 71. Octopus feels like it's in a healthier state, but I'm fine either way.
Octopus has a better name.
Okay.
I would say if one of them had used
reasonable language to
yes,
describe
then we could have
primaries
picked
and
based off of
followers
that,
and
but
like writes and reads instead of
gross.
Yeah, useless phrasing that is.
Well, it's not useless. It is like actively hostile.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's also disinformation. Like, it's not like this server is the. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Grumpy Z is grumpy. All right, so we're gonna make a shards.yaml. We're gonna install this gem, and we're gonna set the production environment to be replicated.
Wait, we do want to set.
We need a shards.yaml because that's what they call the octopus configuration.
Okay.
And then I think we just set up a single read replica in the production instance. And we have to set the host and the adapter and probably the password and stuff.
And we've got 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Good thing you type fast. What? You do.
Alright, so let us pray. Weird. I can't switch my workspace. Why not? There it goes. Alright. So let's check out, and let's pull, and let's check out try octopus. And we're gonna do in our gem file, which is our favorite file to mutate today. We're gonna do, let's look for database related gems. Is there any other database related gems? Got PG is here. It looks like this is alphabetical. Yeah.
Ish.
It's alphabetical. Look
okay.
So if we go and we get our octopus, what is the installation notes? A gem, and we will say it's 0.10 replication.
Split db between read and write. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, and then we're gonna touch shards dot YAML touch config shards dot YAML. I think that was the name. Is that the name?
I think so.
All right, for replication, and this is here's how you're configured in shards.yaml cconfig file. All right, good, beautiful. And replicated only on production. Quack quack, because production. Get it? Get it?
I was reading what Jackson was writing. That seemed much more important than what you were saying. Aerial spaces feedback allow a user to unmute. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think they did a release recently that may have introduced some bugs. So let's go here. I'm worried that these have to be named slave, and I'm not super keen on that, but I also don't want to fuck up this build.
I mean, I would be totally okay with renaming it, and if it doesn't work, switching to Makara.
I think Makara will have the same issue where it's inferring from the names whether it is read or not.
I see what you're saying.
Because I think it's inferred, right? I don't think it's... Oh, that's not how you do this. Because if I go here and it's like, hey, basic usage, if you're only interested in this, do this. Like, you have to say, hey, I guess you can specify the role,
Great,
but
so
it's
you
still
have to,
the same thing.
You have to give it the role, but you can at least change the host.
Oh, well, I think we can change the host here, too. So we can be like, hey, the host is env read replica host. And then I think we need to do the same with password. And then this should be PostgreSQL. Right? Because this should be database.yaml. Does it say you can use URL here? Because I would love if you could just use URL instead of all this other bull crap.
We'd have to go back to, yeah.
Aha! Beautiful. That's what I want. Oh, wait, that's Makura. Aha! Let's switch to Makura.
Okay.
It looks like we can at least get a little bit more stuff. Alright, so where did my database go?
And I'm not sure this one is supposed to be called shards.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. So if we rm config, I like how our decision-making process is, oh, I can use URL. That's good enough for me.
Yes, features.
Yes, that is an important feature. I'm not going to complain about it. All right, and maybe the other one can do it too, but who really knows? All right, Makura.
What was the version?
No, but you can dance like this. Makura. No? All right, I'll stop. Oh, come on. Where's the version? Oh, gosh. Well, screw you too, gem file.
Changelog?
Oh, yeah, good point. I mean, we could also look at the tag list. Oh, God! Or we could if the computer didn't slow. 083, maybe? 04.
In the toolbox, does it say?
No, because it...
0.4.
Oh, yeah, never mind. I'm a liar. Okay, so if we lock that to 0.4... and we got rid of our octopus, didn't we?
You cut it.
Okay. So now if I bundle, and then if we go to the database.yaml, we just change that, which feels a little bit nicer anyway. And then we go back to the Makara config. And active. So we go to the boring spot, and it tells us all kinds of information.
Database.yaml.
And we say our adapter is not MySQL, it is PostgreSQL Makara, I think. And then we say we add this config, and we roles. Yeah. So I think we can literally just put in the additional connection for the read replica here. And we don't need additional primaries yet.
And we think Postgres Makara exists, right?
I am assuming it exists,
Yeah,
but like
we've got 8 minutes. Let's just punch it in. If it doesn't work, then oh well.
What's the worst that can happen? All right, so here's Makara.
Oh, that reminds me. Let's switch to Slack so we can see if Jackson has complaints.
Yes.
I could imagine him having complaints.
He had a question, but
but then we blew past it, so we're okay.
So we don't have any more of these. So roll this URL read database read URL. Get rid of that.
Do we need to have a primary?
I think it merges it into this,
Okay.
is what it looks like it said.
Okay, this is tiny, but can we add a comment that says what that role is? Thank you. This is the read replica. Yeah. Perfect, thank you. Yes.
Alright, and then Makara.
Oh, Postgres, is there a T in?
Oh, we need an adapter. So I think we need to set. So this is the idea. Like, I'm not too worried about that, but this is important. So MySQL to Makara, is there a PostgreSQL Makara? And I have.
We're searching for adapter.
Yes. So PostgreSQL.
PostgreSQL adapter.
Adapter PostgreSQL. Like so.
Let's double check that again. PostgreSQL Makara PostgreSQL adapter.
So it looks like they are.
And then there's also Postgres.
All right, so we're back. So PostgreSQL Makara adapter. I think they just named them the same so that it's not a problem. Yeah, it's like
right.
Acting as if it's the same gosh darn thing. Because here, I bet you this is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Feels good.
So if we call this, so if we go back to the README, or not this one, this. If we go back to here, adapter PostgreSQL Makara. So we don't need the word adapter here. And I kind of want to make this the default, so
that's fine.
Everything doesn't explode. Because if it can't run safely
in dev, then we have problems.
Yeah, like I'm not comfortable merging this. All right, so that is not the terminal. So you bundle. Get status. We've got Makara set up. And we set these correctly, I think. Maybe, who knows? Enable a read replica for production. so not used. How do I insert a line? Enter. Here's how. Set up Makara for a read replica to see. I don't know. There's words that belong here.
Oh, sorry.
Send reads to the newly provisioned. Our hope is that because we are splitting reads and writes, that we stop the bleeding of overwhelming the application. It may not resolve the issue because if the reads are causing locking, that may still result in the read replica falling over and blocking user access. Reasonable?
Yeah. Can you change the send database reads? DB reads. Thank you.
Now I need to V. All right, and Jackson, I don't know why you're still muted, but whatever. I think we are at a breaking point. Let's have you drop and rejoin so we can talk out the last bits, because I think talking is important.
Do we want to make a PR while he's doing that?
Oh yeah, good point. Where do we come from? No.
Hi there.
Hey! Welcome back.
Hey. Oh man, that mute button. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah, it's immutable. Because once it changes, you can't change it again.
That is the highlight of the day.
I think the
Not to Jennifer, not for Jennifer.
All right, so to recap, things that we did was we changed the scheduled jobs, and so that might, if that shifts things, then we know that that job is a problem, and so we can triangulate on that. We also, what else did we do?
We submitted a patch where we enable Scout to give us more information, so we upgraded that.
Is there any additional steps on that one, or is that just going to happen?
That one, the PR needs to get merged,
Okay.
and it shouldn't affect anything, so it should be safe to just merge it and let it go.
Yeah.
Yep.
We also pointed out that if changing the job, if after a couple days that doesn't change anything, one thing you can change is the AWS size.
Yeah, and that should give you more IOPS in case the issue really is we just need more IOPS at burst, which, to be honest, my gut is telling me a better solution is just to move to Aurora.
Can you give a quick explanation of the difference there?
Wait, sorry, before we go there,
Okay.
One other thing is instead of increasing that, another option is to merge the pull request that we just pushed up where we use Makara and have that read replica going. But if you do that, you want to make sure that your team tests pretty thoroughly in development and staging, and be ready to roll back on production.
Yeah, now is that, okay, so we could merge that into staging, right? That pull request.
Yeah, so right now staging doesn't have a read replica, so
Right.
you wouldn't
Okay,
really
so we'd need to
testing that, but I think the way to handle it would be to merge it, make sure testing or staging is still playing nicely, just from a, hey, does it work without the read replica side of things, and then set the environment variable for the read replica's database URL on production, do a promotion, and be very, very ready to do a demotion in the event that everything starts going to crap. So and everything will go to crap in a very aggressive manner, by the way. It's not just going to be surprising.
If we didn't hit it perfectly.
Yes.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the environment variable is what's going to tell it, hey, look here for reads and not there.
Yes-ish. So the merge needs to be done because the database configuration had to be updated, and that has just been set for production. So we haven't set staging to support that. So even if you set the environment variable on staging, it won't do anything.
Yes, understood. Okay, so if we were to roll this out on production, either everything works, or if it doesn't, what we would see is that we can't read.
Yeah.
But we could still write. Someone could still post a moment in theory.
I wouldn't assume that. Like, that sounds like the likelier thing. I also would not assume that.
Yeah, so what you'll want to do is look at your monitoring and see that read IOPS are coming to the read replica and no write IOPS. And I think the read replica will reject writes and just cause issues. But like, it's entirely possible that the failure mode here is we misconfigured Makara and nothing works, right? And then we just roll back. Yeah, and the scarier failure mode, in my opinion, is that we implemented it somewhat successfully and we think it's running, but really it's still sending everything not to your primary database and not to the read replica. And so then it's like, oh, everything looks great, but really it's still going to the same instance, so nothing really changed. And
yes, but so I understand it correctly, that everything would still go to the primary database and then it just replicates over to the read database, correct?
Yeah.
So if we get rid of the read database, nothing has changed. It's still all stored on on the primary.
Yes, you should not experience loss of data.
Okay, that's the number one thing.
But just run your backups and pick a time when no one is around, when you have no users around.
Yeah.
Because this is it is a big risky change.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if it were me, I would do the AWS bump it up a bunch on AWS, see if that works, and if it works, then you might have a path forward that is slightly less risky.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, doing the risky change is the one that might enable you to grow the app better.
Because if the read replica is a solid resolution to the locking conditions, which it may or may not be, then sweet, we could probably scale everything back down to like 100 gigs or something and save you a bunch of money, because it's not like you're hitting CPU limits or memory limits.
Right.
Like, we can probably scale that infrastructure back down for the primary and the read replica.
But it is testing, deploying that is going to be a big risk. There's some chance it will work perfectly, but
roll a d20.
Maybe roll 3 d20s.
Yeah, I'd really love to know more about like the architecture of a much higher traffic product like Instagram or something. I mean, how they're making that happen.
They are very aggressive about shifting their reads from their writes, and then their reading is done on non-relational databases. They're done on file storage. So like S3 could be your canonical source of truth for the moments timeline for someone, and that's just doing gets against a plain old JSON blob or a plain old XML file with embedded binaries or whatever. And so you can get data really fast out of that because it's just, this is what my moments timeline looks like. It's the last 100 things. And every time a write happens, the write goes into the PostgreSQL database and then spins out a worker to read from that and then set the data in S3 or something like that. And that's a very simplified way of explaining it, but like, that's the core model, is like, hey, eventually the reads will be consistent, and that's all we care about. Because it's not like you need to know within a microsecond whether or not, your dog picture just got uploaded, right? You need to know within
a few minutes.
A few minutes is probably fine, and you could have background workers that do that work to populate your moments read table, and you could shard that out on a per user basis so that you have like 2,000 plain JSON objects inside of, you know, S3, and the entire query to read your moments, assuming there's no filters on it, is to slurp that data in from S3 and then filter it down. Or you could put it in front of, you could use another non-relational database system that, like Amazon has a number of these that are perfectly designed for your use case. They're just a bit more expensive to implement than these little one-off things that we've been trying, because we don't want to jump to the hard part, which could take weeks, if we can solve the pain point with a thing that takes, I mean, so far we've invested a day total time.
Yeah.
I mean,
in theory, switching over to something like Aurora, which would be more along those lines of a non-relational database.
So Aurora
is that's different. Separate.
Aurora is a burstable database. So with RDS, and I could be wrong, so please, I haven't implemented Aurora in anger yet. I've just kind of read about it. But my understanding is with Aurora, you can set up a single like endpoint, and that endpoint takes responsibility for things like, oh, this should go to these read values, this should go to these write values. Oh, we're getting hammered, we're gonna spin up a bunch more like, you know, ways to handle that. Hey, we need to go to this availability zone or that availability zone, and like it provides you the mechanisms for that. But I might be making shit up here, so don't go and tell the AWS rep that that's what Aurora does, because they will probably laugh at you.
I haven't read about it, so
okay.
I can't keep up with all of the AWS offerings.
Yes, that's why you go to their conference once a year and don't remember anything because it's in Las Vegas or something. It's a terrible place. I mean, not Las Vegas, but like conferences, big tech conferences. All right. Yeah. Do you feel confident that you can apply the 3 changes that we have, or 4 changes that we have in queue?
Yeah, I think we can. I think they hopefully should be helpful.
Yeah, and I can take some time to pair with you off screen for getting that URL that you need, because that would have a password in it, and I didn't want to share it.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry.
I'm just saying, it's funny, I get muted for half the time, pretty much each session, but that's okay. That's when we're productive.
Let us know how it goes.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks a lot.
See you in the Slack rooms.
Talk soon.
Bye.